it's looking more and more like Dillian Whyte is actually going to have to sue the WBC, that he's actually going to have to take legal action against them in order to get his title shot. So first of all, I'm going to quote the president of the WBC, Mauricio Sulaiman. He said, quote, "We're going to address everything case by case. We will evaluate every single division. But what I can say is that Dillian Whyte is the interim champion and the mandatory challenger. The mandatory date, as of now, is February 2021. But Dillian was supposed to defend his interim title against Alexander Povetkin in July, and that has been uncertain. The Joshua Fury fight is a unification which has different characteristics, but there are many different things to happen for that fight to take place. There are obligations for the champion of the WBC and of the other organizations. There are many fights the fans want to see, but there are too many uncertainties for anything to be set in stone." End quote. So that was Mauricio Sulaiman in a recent interview. And he said that the Povetkin fight was supposed to be a defense for Dillian Whyte, being the interim champion. And that because that hasn't gone ahead, he's kind of insinuating that Dillian Whyte's February 2021 deadline by which he's supposed to get his WBC title shot could get pushed back. That's what I take from what Mauricio Sulaiman said. Almost, blaming it on Dillian Whyte. Well, you're supposed to fight Povetkin, but no. We, the public at least, were of the impression that Dillian Whyte gets his shot by February 2021, no matter what. Now, obviously, nobody in boxing foresaw the circumstances which have happened to the world since, but still, irrespective of that, people still thinking, okay, Dillian Whyte's supposed to get his shot February 2021. End of story. That's the deadline. That's set in stone. You can't keep pushing it back and having other things happen before then, because it's already ridiculous and absurd as it is. But to then use this Povetkin thing and say, oh, well, because he didn't defend against Povetkin, now we've got a right to push it back even further. Again, they didn't flat out say that, or Mauricio Sulaiman didn't flat out say that. But to me, that's what he's insinuating by bringing up, because what does the Povetkin fight have to do with anything? Dillian Whyte theoretically could have just sat on the bench and not had any fights and just waited for his February 2021 mandatory shot. I mean, you look at some of the other mandatories there's been for the WBC. What on earth have they done? Like Berman Stavern. He had one fight in like 3 years against Derek Rossi, a journeyman. I don't think Derek Rossi was even ranked, was he? By the WBC. And yet an extremely inactive Stavern was still mandatory. But yet when it comes to Dillian Whyte, oh God, he's got to jump through hoops and, swim through swimming pools full of razor blades, all kinds of stuff to get his shot. Absolutely bizarre stuff. And really, it's politics more than anything else, I would strongly suggest. So Tyson Fury is somebody I want to quote in this situation as well. He said, quote, I got this Wilder rematch and then we'll hopefully get the Joshua fight done. But if that fight doesn't happen, then yeah, we'll take on Dillian Whyte. Give him a beating. Why not? End quote. So even Tyson Fury is talking about at least the Joshua fight happening before the Dillian Whyte fight. He's saying if the Joshua fight can't happen for whatever reason, yeah, then I'll go ahead and fight Dillian Whyte as an afterthought. Obviously Tyson Fury's priority has to be the undisputed fight, and before then, the Deontay Wilder fight. But think about that. Tyson Fury is saying that he's fighting Wilder first. Yeah. Then he's talking about fighting Joshua. So God only knows when Dillian Whyte is going to get his shot if Tyson Fury is looking to have 2 fights before facing Dillian Whyte. It's not looking good for him. And as I say, I think Dillian is actually going to have to go the legal route, take it to court and force his shot that way. And as G-Man said in my recent roundtable that I did, boxing roundtable, he said that Eddie Hearn probably doesn't want to sour his relationship with the WBC by getting embroiled in some legal battle with them. And that's probably why they haven't gone down that road yet, because Eddie Hearn has said that they can go down the legal road. They haven't done so far. And I think that G-Man's explanation is probably the correct one, that Eddie Hearn just doesn't want to get on a bad footing with the WBC, because once you go down the road of suing the sanctioning body, then it gets even more political. Then fighters in different divisions who you're trying to get a shot for the WBC belt, or maybe they're champions, all of a sudden the sanctioning body's not treating those fighters so well because they're signed to you. And then maybe some fighters think, you know what? I got to leave Eddie Hearn. I got to join a promoter who's on better terms with the WBC. See, this is what can happen. So, but at the end of the day, it should really be Dillian Whyte suing the WBC rather than Eddie Hearn. They should be able to have some kind of separation there where Eddie Hearn says, look, Mauricio, my fighter's not happy. He's going to take legal action against you. It's not me. It's nothing to do with me. It's what my fighter's doing. He feels aggrieved, and it is what it is. Hopefully we can still work together with other fighters. You know, we've got no issue, but this one particular fighter, Dillian Whyte, you know, he's not happy with the way you've been behaving. But I don't think Dillian Whyte would be happy with Eddie Hearn taking such a hands-off, it's, you know, nothing to do with me, my name's Paul, this is between y'all type approach. I don't think Dillian Whyte would be happy about that. I think Dillian Whyte expects Eddie Hearn to have his back and to, you know, be fighting his corner. So there could be tension between Hearn and Whyte if Hearn doesn't, you know, have his back and isn't seen to be fully involved with any legal action that Dillian Whyte might take against the WBC. So I'm going to quote the very angry Mr. Dillian Whyte. In fact, no, let me quote Bob Arum first, because Dillian Whyte has clapped back, for lack of a better term, at Bob Arum at some of Arum's recent quotes. So this is what the Bob father said. He said, quote, we will be talking to the organizations to eliminate mandatories or to postpone them all for at least 1 year. I am sick and tired of being forced with my marquee fighters to fight meaningless fights against mandatories that mean nothing. I won't denigrate Dillian Whyte, but the fact that he's a mandatory means nothing to me. If he fought Fury in the US, it would be the same as Fury fighting Otto Wallin. It means nothing. All boxing promoters and all organizations have to get together to get things rolling at the highest level. Then we'll worry about mandatories. End quote. Now, what Arum said there, I think at first listen, it sounds as though he's comparing Dillian Whyte to Otto Wallin in terms of how good he is as a fighter. But really what he was doing was comparing Dillian Whyte to Otto Wallin in terms of how well the public know Dillian Whyte in America, saying that he's basically unknown. Well, I don't know if he's as unknown as Otto Wallin is, but the perception I have is that Dillian Whyte is pretty unknown in America to the general public. So I don't think what Bob Arum said there was too far off, to be honest with you. I understand the point he's making. He wasn't necessarily, you know, denigrating Dillian Whyte as a fighter, but he's just talking about his profile in America is not particularly high. And he's interested in having Tyson Fury in against high profile fighters. That's the priority for him. So I get what Bob Arum is saying there. And obviously, you know, he's going to want the Wilder fight and the Joshua fights long before he puts Fury in with Dillian Whyte. Because especially the way the world is right now, you don't know what's around the corner. So you got to cash in and make as much money as you can while it's still there. Anyway, Dillian Whyte responded to Bob Arum, and as you would expect, he didn't have much good to say. So let me quote the body snatcher directly. He said, quote, Arum's talking rubbish. If he represented me, he'd be screaming that this is the biggest travesty in the history of boxing, nearly 1,000 days as number one without being given a shot, whereas Tyson Fury barely scraped by the number WBC 31st ranked in Otto Wallin in front of only 3,500 people, and then got gifted my mandatory position without fighting an eliminator, never mind a final eliminator. Fury won the belt off that pathetic hype job Deontay Wilder, as his legs were too weak to carry it any longer after running away from me for years, and now it looks like the two of them are in a relay. The WBC had originally agreed that the winner of Wilder Fury 2 had to fight me by May 2020. Now Wilder's injured and Arum's trying to delay my shot further. It's all wrong. If he was fit to fight, they could fight in July. Who cares if they don't have an audience? Big deal. Both of them have fought most of their careers with hardly any audience. He goes on to say, I've been ranked number one since 2017 and have fought more top 15 contenders than Wilder and Fury combined. I am the Ring Magazine number 2 ranked heavyweight in the world, higher than Wilder. No one is mentioning me as they're scared of fighting me. 100% I can beat Fury. He knows it. That's why he doesn't want to face me. We have history. He has run in the past and he's running scared now. The WBC should order Fury to fight me next, but I don't think the gypsy coward will. After all, he was previously ordered by the WBC to fight me, but he ran away even when they met his demand of putting the diamond belt on the line. End quote. So it's typical Dillian Whyte. He pulls no punches. He's as raw as you could possibly get. And the funny thing he said there, I had to chuckle, is when he said, Fury and Wilder shouldn't worry about fighting in front of no audience because they've been fighting in front of hardly any audience for most of their careers. That was funny. Yeah, I hear what Dillian is saying. He's frustrated and he has to fight his corner at the end of the day. This is a business where there's no friends and you only get what you fight for in boxing. Not many fighters will get things laid out for them. You really have to go in there and grab it for yourself. And that's the story of Dillian Whyte's career. He's made it all happen himself. He didn't have the amateur career and the profile of some other fighters whereby his path was laid out for him. No, he had to do it all the hard way. He came up on small hall shows, fighting in obscurity, and he had to make a name for himself. He's a very strong-willed individual. And it's the same when it comes to his WBC world title fight. Let's be real. He could have had that world title fight against AJ. I know he says the deal wasn't right for him, but he could have had that fight. He turned that down. He's really been going for the WBC. And yeah, he's having to fight real hard outside the ring to actually get that WBC shot as well as inside the ring. I mean, what he said about him having fought more, top contenders over the past couple years than Fury and Wilder combined. Well, that's true. Obviously, Wilder fought Fury, who was, a top contender. Certainly going into the second fight, Fury was a top contender. So that's an example of Wilder fighting somebody good. But when it comes to Fury, yeah, you can definitely say that Dillian Whyte has eclipsed Fury's opponents in terms of the quality. We're talking about fellow challengers, not a world title fight. So Fury, in terms of fellow contenders, he's fought Pianetta, who's not really a contender at all. He's a journeyman at this point. Sefer Safiri, another journeyman. Then he fought Schwartz, who a contender, fringe contender, really poor contender, but I guess you can call him a contender. And Otto Wallin, another fringe contender, definitely a lot better than Schwartz, but still a fringe contender. You compare that to who Dillian Whyte's been fighting, And there is no comparison. Whyte has been fighting better opponents than that. So, yeah, I hear what Dillian is saying there. I understand his frustration. But ultimately, as I said at the start, I think he's going to have to go down the legal route. I wish it weren't the case, because whenever things go to court, it usually gets dragged out, and it often, sometimes it's counterproductive going to court. Sometimes because of the drawn out legal process and the bitter feelings that can come from court battles, you end up having to wait even longer. Obviously, it depends on how the court rule, but if the case gets dragged out for months, then you might have been better off just waiting for your shot, But then again, with fights like the AJ Fury fight, Fury Wilder, AJ Pulev, all of these fights being put in front of Dillian Whyte getting his shot. And the reason I mention AJ Pulev is because he's probably going to have that fight before he can fight the unification with Fury. So you're putting all of these fights in front of Dillian Whyte's shot for the WBC title. And who knows how many other fights might get put in front of it. So the way it's looking right now, Dillian Whyte's probably going to have to go down the legal route. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.